Good evening. Welcome to the July 2nd, 2025 Abington Finance Committee meeting. We have a decent agenda in front of us tonight, starting out with welcoming our two new members, then going through reorganization. We'll have an update from the town manager's office on where we stand. We have our police chief and deputy who will be back in the room in a few minutes. We'll talk about a few other things. We will go over year-end transfers, and then liaison reports, correspondence, of which there is none yet again. Reviewing minutes, which we do have minutes to review, and then discussing when our next meeting might be. We may not come to a conclusion, depending on how things go tonight and if we get there. So starting off, I will welcome our two new members. Emily, will you pronounce your last name for me?
Your guess is as good as mine. Grzeski is what I say.
Okay, Grzeski.
Grzeski.
Emily Grzeski and Floyd Bartram. Welcome aboard. It's very nice to have both of you here. And at this point, I will turn the meeting over. Scott, am I turning it over to you or am I turning it over to Andrew?
Either one.
It's usually to the board secretary, but since COVID, we haven't had an in-person board secretary, which has worked very well because the answers have been excellent and professional.
I think that we have minutes for you tonight, too.
We do. We have 4 sets of minutes.
All right, so I will accept nominations for chair.
And I nominate Matt Sauer for chair.
Do I hear a second?
Sure.
All right, do we have any other nominations for chair?
Anybody else want the job? Anyone? I would suggest to Emily and Floyd not to accept.
Oh no, I was the
nomination.
second.
No, I'm saying not to accept a nomination if someone nominates
Oh, okay.
You might want to wait a year or two.
Noted. That tells me how you
maybe,
feel.
maybe next year.
Sure.
Okay, all in favor of Matt Sauer being chair?
Aye.
Any opposed, other than Matt? It's unanimous. I will hand the meeting back over to you.
Thank you, Scott. I will now turn to accepting nominations for vice chair. We have
Nominate Barbara.
Sarah's nominating Barbara. Is there a second?
Does Barbara want the job?
Yeah, just
It doesn't matter? Oh, I second.
Seconded by Emily, who is already blazing a trail for seconding nominations.
Good.
Love it. Are there any other nominations for vice chair? Without seeing any, we'll vote on Barbara. All those in favor of Barbara as vice chair, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Abstaining? The ayes have it. Barbara is the vice chair. Next up would be the board secretary.
I nominate.
I think a suggestion is being made, perhaps.
That is where I was going.
He did,
Definition, so-
yes. And that is a role that he enjoys and wants to keep, Chris, so. I will say that Greg passed on the statement that if we nominate him for anything that he does not want to do, he will break our kneecaps.
I nominate Abby Gendro.
What does the secretary do? Because I famously am a bad speller. So.
Spelling is not a requirement for the
Okay.
secretary. So we have our board secretary, Kelly, who has been watching the meetings and taking notes and taking the minutes. You kind of keep your own set of notes in case we need to go back to things.
Okay.
Especially if there's a meeting where we're having technical difficulties and it doesn't get recorded right or something like that. It's good to have the in-person minutes.
And you're third in the line of succession.
Yes. Yeah, Barbara and I both quit.
I have good faith purpose of quitting.
Something will probably have happened and you will probably have somebody else stepping in front of you. Maybe, maybe not. So have we convinced you on the job?
Sure.
All right. Is
You
there
need a second.
Yeah, is there a second?
Second.
Oh, I think Floyd got that one first, so.
Those are the long ones.
Any other nominations for secretary? Without any, all those in favor of voting for Abby for secretary?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? The ayes have it. Congratulations to Abby. Next, we will vote for statistician. Are there any nominations for statistician?
I will nominate Chris.
Abby nominates Chris Murphy,
I'll second.
seconded by Sarah. Any other nominations? Without any, all those in favor of Chris being voted the statistician, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? It is unanimous. Chris is the statistician. And that is all, and we will not do liaisons.
We don't do a second statistician anymore?
Not anymore, no, we switched that a few years ago. So that we will not do liaisons until we have a little bit more robust
Good idea, yeah.
attendance. I want to give the new people a little bit of a meeting or two under their belts before we go into liaisons with them, let them hear maybe a liaison report before they have to decide any departments they might want to liaise with, so. That ends our time of reorganization. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Matt.
And brings us to the section of our agenda for an update from the town manager.
Well, where would you like me to begin?
Where would you like to begin?
All right, well, let's.
I think we might want to begin with a certain department that has a couple of members here tonight.
Well. I mean,
Or do you
we
want
wanna
to, or
wait
do
till
you
we
want
the
to, or
transfer.
do you want to save that?
I think we save it for the when we're
Okay.
ready to do the transfer.
Sounds good.
And I think, I guess just to sort of recap, the town meeting, that waste removal did stay in the budget. We did fund that with free cash.
Which for those watching, paying attention at home, funding it with free cash for this fiscal year was the plan all along, regardless of what happened with the vote. It's really more the longer term impact for years beyond that we were concerned with.
Yeah, the problem is ultimately we were hoping it would no longer be part of the budget and it would just be a separate user fee.
Yep.
Funded the first year with free cash or over a couple of years to phase it in.
Yep.
The plan was not well received, and so it remains in the budget. And then the problem again is to the fact that we used free cash and we used some other sources, non-recurring sources of income to balance the budget, which is going to cause us some real big problems when we get to the next annual town meeting. It looks like the final budget coming out of the state is not going to offer any relief. There's no real changes. If anything, it might have dropped a little bit as far as unrestricted government aid. There's no.
Jim? I do have the updates on that. Based on the conference committee budget, cherry sheet revenues are about 115K better, but the assessments are about 38K more expensive. So overall, we're net 77K better, but that's still not huge.
We'll take it.
Better than being on the home.
Yes.
Last year, we actually went the other way.
Right.
So it's good that we're in the positive.
Maybe you're gonna get to this, but what conversations are we having right now? Here we are in July, so we're starting the new fiscal year. What conversations are we having at this point about the waste management?
We're really not focused on the waste management, as we're focused on the budget overall. So one thing I think you're obviously aware of is that we talked about a fiscal advisory committee to help us go through the next budget cycle. You were on what that committee, when it was really the waste management committee, I guess. It'll be 2 members of this board, 2 members of the school committee, 2 members from the Board of Selectmen, and we do have a couple members of the public at large who want to be on it, and obviously Andrew, myself, and Sarah Poole and Felicia from the school department. And ultimately, what we have to look at is, we want to try and focus on a plan to move forward, a long-term plan, 5 to 10 year financial plan. It will also involve what we're going to do about the next budget, because there'll be options that will be presented that will be big choices for the town, and there'll be layoffs in one of the options. There'll be could be a couple of the options could include layoffs, and there'll be options to obviously fund the town in different ways. Those are things that we're going to discuss. But right now,
So are we taking the trash fee off the table?
the trash fee's off the table. Yeah,
Completely.
there's no sense in bringing it back. I mean, yep.
What's the difference between that committee and this committee?
So this committee will meet, you will meet with all the departments, reviews the overall budget. That committee's more going to focus on how we want to structure the possibilities of an override. So if there is going to be, there will have to be, a question on whether we want to have an override or not. And
So short-term, long-term?
yeah, that's kind of more of a long-term thing, and
Okay.
how we want to present that to this committee. But we need members, because we need to have sort of consensus amongst all the committees on that, on how ultimately we present it to the public. Because at the end of the day, it's up to town meeting, and we want them to have the opportunity to make that decision on, how they want to go forward, and I think that committee's more of what is the long-term plan and how do we want to present it? Where's the best place to focus, or how do we want to focus? Is it, what are the needs of the schools, and those are the things we'll look at. What are the long-term needs of the schools, the police department, the fire department, the public works department, town hall, the library, senior center, all of them. So the idea is to make sure that it's not redundant of this committee, and we want to make, work, when we first get that committee together, is to sort of make that clear, and then ensure that we're not working and doing anything twice.
Thanks.
So that's actually hoping to kick that off early September, and I think this group, we are going to have to start meeting earlier this year as well. Now, they did push out town meeting.
We did talk about that already,
Yeah.
knowing what we expect with the budget situation. Even with town meeting moved out, and what are we anticipating for town meeting?
I believe it was May, maybe the second week or third week of May.
I was gonna say
Like May 20th, maybe,
mid-May.
Yeah, it was. they pushed
That'll
out-
give us more time on that end, but we're definitely gonna need more time overall to work with the departments and figure out exactly where we're at and what our options are.
Yeah, May 19th would be a Monday, so that's.
Just to
probably-
clarify, the committee members, I thought I heard my name.
You want to be on the committee?
No, you said my name.
You said
too.
Sarah
Yes.
Poole.
Did I say Sarah Poole?
Yes, you did.
Sarah,
Okay, just checking.
He
Yeah,
did,
Sarah,
he
From
did
the
say your
school.
name.
from the
Okay.
school. Did I say
Like,
Sarah?
that's news to me.
Oh, there are two of
I
us
was
in
like,
town?
I was like, I don't remember Sarah being
No,
a
I don't
representative.
remember that either.
But we are lucky for 2 members. And actually, that committee, it won't be weekly meetings, it'd probably be more like a monthly meeting with that committee. We'll try and make it as convenient as possible. It can, preferably in person, but obviously we have the capability of doing it hybrid. And again, some of it will seem similar to this committee in the fact that, we will be bringing departments in and having to talk to them. Another thing that I've been instructed to do by the select board is to review all of the departments within sort of town hall and find if there are any opportunities for outsourcing things that we don't currently outsource, and if there's any, to just at least explore if there are any savings there. We did find that in our website, as far as somebody who sort of keeps our website up and fresh and deals with our social media. You know, Samantha Linehan and In-House Alternatives, we contracted with them a while back, and that did actually save a lot of money. So we'll continue to look at those things. They haven't really started, but, you know, some of those things have already come to this committee. I think, you know, the assessors come to mind when it actually worked out better not to have something outsourced, so. But we are gonna do that, and I'll have that discussion with the selectmen in September, and ultimately with this board as well. There's lots of fun stuff going on for the summer. But, you know, not to really put a damper on things, but, you know, currently, a deficit in the area of $5 or $6 million next, for FY '27 is not unlikely. So it's a very big hurdle to overcome, just at level.
Yeah. Yeah. If things continue the way things are projected, level is not likely to be possible.
No, and unfortunately, you know, it's just, there's a lot of factors that are involved. You know, we're gonna get a little bit of an uptick on new growth, but for the most part, new growth is stagnant over the past 5 years or so here. You know, there's no new source of revenue for us. There's no great increases to state aid or to Chapter 70 aid, which is the school aid. You know, there's just not a lot of opportunities, and that new growth number sort of helps feed all the other numbers, the meals tax numbers and such, and the excise tax numbers. And so with everything being flat like that, it just, you know, it's not.
What do we have in stabilization currently?
3 million?
We spent 400K, so 2.9-ish.
And that's after we,
After town meeting.
town meeting, that's the number currently.
Yeah.
And tell me the number again for what the amount was for the trash. When all was said and done, when the bill was paid for the year.
1.2 million?
If you're looking for names for people who are potentially interested in that committee, I'm interested.
I would be too.
Well, it's up to you guys as a group to decide that, but that's great.
Yep,
Just if you're starting a list.
definitely.
And I think that's all I have for.
All you have for updates for right now?
Until we get to.
Now that we've gotten that ray of sunshine out of the way. All right, so that takes us to year-end transfers. Andrew, you want to take the floor?
Sure. Do you want to go line by line down the list, or did you want to start?
Do you want to give us an overview first, and then we'll go line by line?
Sure.
So first, real quick explanation, especially for the new folks on the committee. Within the town's budget, there are what are referred to as line items, saying essentially when we pass the budget at town meeting, it's laid out, we can spend this amount, up to this amount of money on this particular thing. For example, library salaries. Or like electricity, things like that. So we lay out line by line, amount by amount, what we're going to spend. The budget that you have seen at town meeting doesn't always lay out, because it would take, what's our printout usually, like 130 pages to get like the full thing.
The olden days, though.
Full thing laid out.
Every line.
Used to have that printed out at town meeting. It's available on the town's website. The actual line by line budget. When we get to the end of the year, to make the books balance, we go through as some items have overspent to a certain amount. Some items have underspent, and we typically will go through and kind of balance the books and make the numbers work out at the end of the year. So that's what this process will be, is going through where we have money and where we need to allocate money and move things to. And typically, if we can do it within department, that's better than doing it outside of department, but I think when we're at this point, we're outside of department,
Yes.
so. Anything?
No,
Okay. Andrew?
All right, so as far as year-end transfers go, there are two larger ticket items that are kind of anomalous for us to see. One is for police salaries. We have the department here, and I'll let them talk about that. And also, the other biggest one is for debt service. There was issuance costs for a state house note. In general, we sort of use that to cover, capital projects before we go out to a full borrowing. But you can only do it once per year. And just based on the timing of when we did it for the last time, we were kind of stuck with an unanticipated bill.
what we were doing it for?
To cover capital projects before we do a full borrowing.
No, I know, what was the project?
It's the fire station and, yeah, there's the fire station.
And that came too close to,
The last time we took out money.
do we know what that was for?
Probably the difference between phase one and phase two.
Right, we did some road work, and there's a small, capital project plan. Road work, town hall and library improvements. This is from the prior year.
Okay.
Probably the roof.
Oh, yeah,
It
yeah.
yeah.
was the library roof.
The other items, we can go through them later, but they're more typical. As far as where we're going to find this money, that's listed at the top. We have $50K from the Finance Committee Reserve.
Does that wipe us out?
It does. It's the first time we've used it in quite a while.
But
We
that-
funded it
it's-
again.
It's funded every year.
Right.
It's funded separately
Yeah.
each year. So
Usually
No, I
just
know.
goes,
It-
usually it
so
just goes to free cash.
There wasn't anything used out of that reserve?
Correct.
Out of our reserve
No.
fund, we haven't
Right.
had a
No.
25?
we had nobody come and request money out of the, I don't think we've had a request out of the
I don't
reserve
remember
fund
any.
in several years.
Yeah, I think it was, might have been during COVID years.
I was gonna say, I think the last time I remember might have been HVAC at the library. Maybe.
No, I think it was the boilers at the fire station.
I'm
Yeah,
recalling
it
some
might have
kind
been boilers
of
at the fire
leak,
station.
something leaking or something.
and the fire station
Over there,
too.
so it
Yeah.
could've been both.
Yeah.
The fire station.
There was
we did
something,
the
there was
boilers.
something at the library. I don't remember
It
what
would
it
have
was.
probably
though.
been the boiler there as well.
So that's just an emergency fund?
So essentially, we put that money into an emergency fund because the stabilization fund that we mentioned earlier that has 2.9 million in it, money can't be taken out of that without a vote by town meeting.
Okay.
So this is a smaller amount for kind of smaller last minute, emergency type things.
Unanticipated.
Unanticipated repairs,
A roof.
basically.
Yeah.
Something happened.
We typically not a roof,
Oh,
Over
okay.
in the station.
more like a water heater.
The raccoons got
or
it.
something like that,
That was like 20 grand.
so.
How did the 50,000 become the number? Is that just the minimum, or is that a number that?
No, that's a number that we had decided on. I'm trying
It
to
previously
remember.
was, I believe it was 35.
I think when I first
30,
started on the committee, it was
25, I think,
35
when I
every
first
year that
started.
we were putting in. And
I think the
There was
COVID
one-
year, we did 180 or something.
yeah, we put a lot into that
We
and
never
into
touched it.
stabilization that year that we didn't ever touch.
Well, we were afraid we wouldn't be able to have a town meeting.
But when I was early on the committee, there was a year that we had to tap into that several times for Veterans Aid. And
Just
after
things come up,
after that, we bumped.
departments will come to us and say, our boiler went, this is not in our budget,
Something
we've got
runs.
6 months left of the year, we're not gonna make it.
Does that money come from free cash, or is that, where is that
No,
money?
it's a line item in the budget.
Oh, okay.
We
It's
set it
budgeted aside
It's
just for-
budgeted aside
Okay.
just for that, and to use it, request has to be made to finance committee, and then we vote on it.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
and that is money that would normally, if we do, anything we don't spend in it would go into the formula for free cash for the next year.
Okay.
So that takes care of the first one on the list.
The next source is 185K from town office building expenses. So that is primarily from electricity. We do sell excess solar credits to other municipalities, so this helps us cover that. Another 25K from town manager salaries, so there is an employee there who went part-time.
They're gonna say Scott just donated.
I gave
that.
I was gonna say, how do
Thank
you
you,
have
sir.
extra in salaries? Aren't those set?
Not always, it depends on if people leave, like if you have a position that's open for a few months.
Okay.
Depends on if someone's coming in at a higher rate,
That
what
makes sense.
the delta is between those. So we definitely have had several years where we've had a lot of salary money left over at the end of the year because we weren't able to fill positions or because we chose not to fill a position for a while, so.
There's 150,
Oh, go ahead.
150K from fire salaries. 175K.
Can you explain that one? How do we have 150K in fire salaries?
From what I understand, there's a vacation benefit that some people didn't end up using, and it expires June 30th, so they're not able to put in for it for 25 anymore.
Okay.
That's a contractual obligation.
Next up is 175K from waste collection. It looks like that our trash mitigation efforts have been paying off with that. So the
So
expenses.
we over budgeted
Not by much.
By 175,000.
by 175,000.
Which,
Which
Argue
could see,
that, but-
it could go either way,
Right.
depending
Oh,
on tipping
definitely.
fees and different
As
things
we-
that can happen, but.
the fees that we are charged for waste collection fluctuate on a monthly basis, so,
So it's nice when it goes this way.
yeah.
You don't see that as a trend.
I wish.
After that, we have 100K in unemployment expenses and 220K from health insurance expenses. This year, we did a premium holiday. We were able to tap some money in the health trust, so that's why we have that extra 220K.
Can you explain that in, you were able to, with the health insurance, you were able to do what?
So we still have, before we transitioned to the new health insurance that we're on,
Right.
we were we were self-insured, so we were on our own.
Right.
We had a fund where all the premiums from employees as well as the town share of that were put into a fund. And basically when claimed experience is better than we expect, we're able to, save on our health insurance. That money can only be spent in the proportion that was deposited and only for health insurance purposes. So what most towns do with that is just give employees a premium holiday. And when that happens, both the town and the employees don't have to pay premiums for like a month, and instead we'll just use the savings that's in the trust. So rather than take money out of the budget to pay for health insurance premiums in May, we just paid it out of the trust. So it saved us a month of payments.
Okay.
And then so is this left over in the trust after?
That 220K is left in the health insurance budget.
Okay.
We,
Oh, because you
yeah,
used,
when we
okay.
did the 25 budget, we anticipated doing that because otherwise we wouldn't have made it. But that's one-time money and it's
Right, yeah,
gone
yeah.
now.
And you can't use that for anything other than the health insurance.
It has to be health insurance related.
Okay.
So in total, that's 905K in transfers. And just as a note, we do have another warrant, another set of accounts payable warrants and payroll warrants next week. So these numbers aren't necessarily
100% written in stone.
right.
So,
The select board will be voting on July 10th, so I would recommend that your vote tonight leave the option for future changes. Like this is, I don't think it'll change substantially, but a couple numbers here and there.
so for people at home and for our newer members, the fiscal year ends on June 30th. It goes July 1st to June 30th. Not all of the bills are necessarily in by June 30th, and we will sometimes get things last minute and the numbers are,
We have until July 15th
yeah,
to book things for fiscal '25.
yeah. Some of the departments will have things that they have either purchased or not the money they used that they haven't quite submitted all the receipts for, et cetera. So,
If they don't make it in time, it'll be a late item at town meeting.
yeah,
We beg our vendors to get everything in.
yes, we do. And there's almost always at least one item on town meeting for a
Unpaid bill.
previous unpaid bill, so. So, do we want to now discuss the police salaries item and how we got to where we are?
Yeah, this is probably a
And,
good.
and where we are going forward, I think is one of the bigger questions.
Yeah, so and I'll turn it over to the chief. I think one thing to say is there was a lot of transition going on at the department when the chief came in. At a given point in time, there were, because of the transition, there were, at one point, actually had 3 chiefs
Yeah,
that were getting paid. The contractual obligations to Chief Del Papa carried through up until April or May, June, May, I guess it was late May. And we did have the interim chief, and we actually had the interim was Dave Majensky. We actually had him spend some overlap time also to, assist in the transition.
Help on board.
Right. So meanwhile, some of the other big things that were happening over there were injuries that have to be backfilled with overtime, obviously. As you folks are well aware, staffing issues that we've addressed and have been addressed, but also lead to overtime issues. So I'll let the chief kind of give you more of a detailed breakdown on that. We, as I said, we were expecting it on my end. I think that we were expecting it to be in the $200,000 range is what I was fully aware of. When we had conversations early on, that the chief would say, let me know that he was more concerned, especially when it was with the injuries. In my head, it wasn't going to be that much more. Obviously, it snowballed, and here we are. There was definitely a bit of a breakdown in communication that going forward we've addressed. But it was on all of our parts. It's no real one person who didn't follow through, but I think we've got a better system going forward, and certainly this is very, it's not the norm. This isn't how we typically come to you folks. We usually have minor things, but yeah, this year is a bit extraordinary. I'll let the chief take over from here.
Yeah, I think this was the equivalent of the 100-year storm. I mean, everything happened at once. 3 chiefs, we also had, thank you. The injuries, we had 2 sergeants out injured. One was injured on duty after being attacked by an absolute animal, and he spent significant time out. And another one was an injury off duty, and that cost us nearly almost $80,000 to cover those overtimes. When I appeared before you in January, I painted the picture of not only are we, light on patrol, but we're light on sergeants as well because of a military deployment. So one of our sergeants is deployed currently in Poland. He tells me he doesn't think he'll be back until the end of next fiscal year. When I put these numbers together, it was early June. And at the time, we had paid, the sergeant that's deployed still gets paid out. Under federal law, we still have to pay him. It's a short salary, but we're still paying him. And then we have to pay the overtime to cover his shifts. So in salary, we had paid him early June at approximately $42,000, and it's tough because he hadn't been scheduled to really come up with the number of overtime shifts we used on him. But it's clearly significant because what did I work with in 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I met him and he said, "Sir, I'm being deployed." I'm like, "Well, I wish you well." So, I mean, that was pretty much the extent of our conversation. And then we had an agreement with an officer that left the agency prior to me getting there, and we had a vacation buyout for him at $21,000. Chief Majenski had a buyout at about $8,400, we're working toward accreditation. Like, we've taken a lot of steps. This is a big number, but it could have been way bigger by hundreds of thousands of dollars if we hadn't taken the steps that we did. So we did hire civilian dispatchers, and their salaries are about $51,000.
They're more attendance.
Attendants, yeah, desk attendants. Our dispatch is done out of Holbrook, but we have to staff the building or close it. So we had 3 part-time desk attendants, and we made the decision to try and hire 2 full-time for the overnight shift and the 3 to 11 shift. And that's $102,000 in salary, but it saves $169,000 in overtime. So I thought that made financial sense. Those 2 desk attendants scored very well on our exam, and they are currently in the academy, so now we have 2 holes for our desk attendants. When I was last here before you, I had talked to you about open shifts, and if you remember, and I'll explain it for the newer people on the board, an open shift is not a shift coverage for vacation, sick time, comp time, holiday time. It is literally, we don't have the staff to fill. We run 2 patrol officers and 1 sergeant. So if one person takes time off, that's vacation time, and we have to backfill that. But we didn't even have the staff to fill those shifts. So we had between July 1 and June 3rd-ish, when I put these numbers together, at the time we had 608 open shifts for the year, over $300,000. So that's why I said it was important that we fill the vacant spots that we had been funded for, and we went out and did that. So they're in the academy now. They won't be road ready, though. They won't be available to us to cover shifts until January. They'll graduate in October. There's about 3 months of field training, and then they'll be road ready. We talked about this afternoon. When that happens, that's when we're going to see real change, both in the volume of work that we'll put out. I'm tremendously proud of the group that I have. Like, they had one in custody when we left to come here today. 2 patrol, 1 sergeant. That's what we run. It's light. But, so filling these positions was paramount because, like you had explained to me when I was here, we were not retaining people. And part of my mission when I came here as chief was both recruitment and retention, and we've done just that. We've filled every open position we have to bring us up to minimum staffing. These aren't new positions, it's bringing us up to minimum staffing, and we have actually kept 2 officers from leaving. They had opportunities. One with a federal law enforcement agency was offered the job, and one was in talks with a bigger agency, a city agency with a lot more room for growth, for promotion units, and they both want to stay here because what we're building is working, and it's
very good.
The future is exciting for us. But like I said, this was like the 100-year storm.
What is
it was
the,
very costly.
What was the number for your overtime budget
So
for the year? What were you budgeted for the overtime?
I was budgeted for $140,000. And when I was here in January, we were already $125,000 over that.
Without all of the extenuating circumstances, if we subtract out, because I didn't write down all the numbers, if we were to subtract out the paying the overlap of Majensky, paying Del Papa, when we were paying, if we draw that out, where are we at? How much over the overtime budget are we?
So
I
I
think, sorry to just
Yeah.
summarize, I think what you're looking for is, for the year fiscal year that started yesterday, what are we looking at being over? For overtime, or?
No, I want to know what, without the extenuating circumstances, he was budgeted for 140,000. How much over that 140,000 did we go without extenuating circumstances? Just how much did we actually go over?
Over in overtime specifically.
Take out.
Specifically.
So,
Majensky, take out.
put aside.
Right.
Put aside the other factors.
So
Put aside the desk attendants, put aside the chiefs and stuff.
300,000, 253.
better than that. So the numbers that I have here for just the open shifts, not vacation coverage or anything, is 320,000, and that was around first week of June.
320,000 overall, not 320,000 over the 140?
No, I'm sorry, 320 minus the 140, because and that's just open shifts, just the open shifts.
So we're drastically under budgeting overtime.
We are, although we'd like to think, as
So,
the staffing changes.
with the staffing change,
Okay.
like looking at staffing up to speed on the streets as of January, you were saying.
Yep.
But we're
What?
gonna be halfway through.
So
the year.
50%.
Right, so
Yeah.
what would we expect between now and January, then between January and?
So we have made a change a little bit. So the open shifts should be a little easier. So, and I want to thank the union for their cooperation on this. When we were looking at the numbers, and obviously this is bleak, and because only 2 people are scheduled at a time, we hadn't denied vacation time. So if the 2 people wanted vacation time, we had to grant it. My plan was, and I explained this to the union, and I've explained this to boards before, was once we were fully staffed, we would be able, because we would be well over that sort of 2 people in the shifts, the people above 2 officers and the sergeant would be able to take time off until we reached 2.
Yep.
So there wouldn't be open shifts, vacation time coverage, barring injuries, training, that wouldn't cost us any overtime.
Right.
But that's still not until January. But what the deal I struck with the union 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
2 weeks ago, one person can, if they're scheduled at 2, only one can take time off. And that's tough, because
Yeah.
only 9 guys. So right now, our sergeants and lieutenants are in fact covering patrol overtime, which also inflated the overtime by about
The price, because their
$30,000.
pay scale is
Yeah.
higher than.
So I anticipate those things going away. When someone had asked, when we graduate the 7 out of the academy, if we have no injuries or retirements or anything like that, we have no open shifts. We have no open shifts. So like we've fixed the open shift overtime.
And as you said, that doesn't account for people who get injured,
Right.
things like that.
Yep.
So we know that there won't be no open shifts from January through June, but
Which
it
is-
should be significantly less.
Sorry, do injuries happen often?
A couple times a year.
He's
Well,
like,
it's-
yeah.
It's unpredictable.
I know, of course, but I just,
Unpredictable, but
was
it-
this like a once,
but
I don't
it-
know if this is like
it
a, oh, we
is-
always have 2 people
We would
injured.
hope it would be, but unfortunately.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's unfortunately part
Yeah.
of the nature of protecting the public.
For sure.
It
Oh, of course.
puts you
I will say, compared to my last agency. This is a far more, it's a younger and more physically fit, so like, the getting out of bed injuries that I suffer sometimes, almost a half a century old, I don't think happen. But they do happen.
Yeah.
Like I said, one was a skiing accident, and that it was long-term, and then one was, two of our people got injured by this one person, and one was long-term because he broke a bone. But I will say, and it's in the booklets that I handed out to you in June, it shows that, oh yeah, right there.
That's why you're the secretary.
Yeah, outstanding. So this gives you, oh, gold star for you. So this is a lot to consume, so trying to explain it now, but like on days we have, the way our platoons go is there's like our day shift runs 3 to 11, and then there's like a relief shift, right? On those relief days, once we get everybody out of the academy, we could have as many as 6 patrol officers and 2 sergeants on the road. I mean, those are numbers this town hasn't seen since, Sergeant Marquardt was a rookie. Like, it's just, we haven't been able to retain him. But what we're doing now seems to be working. So, and this was, I think, for the month of January, maybe, the amount of open shifts that we had. It compares a fully staffed department to the current staffing, and he lists in here all the just open shift. Those aren't vacation time, and they do get granted vacation time, and they've earned their time off. And like I said, it wasn't easy to ask them to do this early, to change their vacation, but the union's been great. They understand.
That's great to hear.
Yeah.
Now, you said that they'd be fully on the road in January. I just don't understand. Are they like slowly getting put on the road before then? So like there's a little more people, or?
Yeah, so that's a good point. When they graduate in October, there's about a week of administrative work where they're not on the road. They're learning our policies and things like that, and so they're in-house. But then they ride with a field trainer for about 3 months. So we'll have the body on the road. They just can't count toward manning until we've trained them.
Okay.
So the academy lasts 6 months. They're trained to be a police officer, and then the next 3 months is we train them to be an Abington police officer, which is
Okay.
amazing. But they'll be road ready, and
It's also, the academy only teaches you so much.
Yes.
Being
Yeah.
in the department and being in the town
Yeah.
teaches you more,
for sure. So
Is the training part of the salary, or is that?
yeah, we pay them in the academy. So that's one thing. If we're looking at the next, the current, now that we're in this current fiscal year to January, they are getting paid, and we still have the overtime woes because they're still in the academy. And then once they get out in October, there's a 10% bump in pay for the field trainers. So it's not going to be great for the first 6 months, and that's why we took the step with the vacation that we did. We're delaying. So last year, last fiscal year, when I started, I looked at the budget and I saw that we were going to have budget woes. So I eliminated in-service training. And what in-service training is, we're required by state law to go to in-service training for 1 week. Typically, that's held off campus. It's an in-person training. There is an online option. So I made that mandatory, and they had to do it on shift. So it didn't cost any, or that saved us about 80 grand. What we're gonna do this time is we're going to just delay it, because I don't wanna do that back to back. It's really ineffective training. We're checking the boxes that we fulfilled the training, but it's not ideal. But we're not gonna allow our guys to go to in-service training until starting in January, when those guys are off.
Makes sense.
So like we're taking steps to ease the blow.
Yep. Which obviously is appreciated.
I do wonder, though, to Barbara's point about the overtime, and whether we've budgeted adequately for overtime for the current fiscal year. If we're going to have open shifts for the next 6 months, we'll be using quite a lot of overtime in that time. And
We
then
will.
who
That's
knows
what I was
will
trying,
happen in
I'm
the
trying
second half
to
of the
get to a
year.
number of what we think we're gonna be, just a ballpark of what we think we're going to be over
So the
this
conversation.
year that we're, current year that we're in.
And we had that conversation this afternoon, because we do know, we need that number, you need that number. And rather than, I'm not sure, I think what we felt that it would be better and probably get a better handle on it within the next 3 months, somewhere around October. And then we can start making some decisions on how we're gonna deal with it. But there will be a number, obviously, we're gonna be underfunded going forward. Still, they've made some good strides in cutting it back from what it was. But yeah, we're gonna have to figure out how we're gonna have to deal with that.
When
And-
you're making a statement like, we could be in the ballpark range of a deficit of somewhere around 5 million,
In FY '27.
is that, were you taking this issue into consideration in that, or would that be over and above?
No, that would be in that
Involved,
FY '27 number.
But this is more.
This is-
that we-
this is FY
Currently, this is an
26
FY
issue.
'26 issue.
Yeah.
And hopefully,
We're gonna
not-
have a deficit for 26 though.
Right now, with the rate that, if things continue on at this rate, there's probably $150,000 deficit would be my guess on his overtime. It could be more. And it just depends. And that's why I said, I think we'd have a better track on that in October. And then we're gonna have to figure out how we're gonna deal with that. And again, he's made some really good steps on different things that can help curb that. So hopefully, those are the things that are gonna work. We're not going to have any more injuries. And
I've told
which,
he told
everybody
them not
to
to
stop
do it.
getting hurt. Yeah. It's gonna work. It's gonna work. But, and we've had
that's all you
some,
need to do, right? Just tell them not to get hurt.
yeah, we've had some major incidents since I started back in September. Fatal crash takes a lot of investigation, takes a lot of bodies coming in. Homicide in December. We've had 3 fatal train crashes. It's just been, and those take a lot. That takes a
Yeah.
lot. We had we made an arrest on really an international case that we had for a sexual assault. Followed the guy from New York to Mexico, back into Boston, and made, but, Sergeant Lynch and SRO White put in just mammoth amount of work on that, and that takes it to, like, investigations cost money too, and those are more common than injuries, I would say, but,
And I by no means want to come across as that the money shouldn't be being spent, or that it's being spent frivolously.
Yeah.
I don't think that
I
at all.
appreciate that.
I don't think that at all. I know where the department's been and where it's at right now. I'm just sharing my concerns about, as you heard, the whole beginning of the meeting was the discussion about where we're going to be at fiscally.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that's gonna be.
layoffs and that type of thing seem imminent. And, yeah.
Yeah, and again, that is going to be part of the decisions that we're gonna ask the town and the community to make in the future is, how do you wanna invest your money and what's important and what,
But it comes down to that we pay, what we mostly, our budget is mainly made up of salaries.
Yeah.
So
We're
we
a
don't really
service industry,
have,
there's
right,
nothing, yeah.
exactly. There isn't, you don't have somewhere that you can cut 500,000, 400,000, 300, there isn't something where you can say like, oh, we can shave this off here, and we do, in my opinion, run pretty lean.
I think we run very lean,
Yeah.
quite honest with you, and that's what is making it, will make it even more difficult when we start talking about FY '27, is because it's such a large number that it's gonna have dramatic effects on the school, police, fire, DPW.
But we'll want to remember that currently we are, the 600,000 number is a little inflated because of other issues.
Circumstances.
But when we're laying people off, he's gonna be backfilling, and we're gonna be back in the same situation that we're in with paying overtime and filling shifts with sergeants that are getting paid more.
Yeah,
So-
and that is going back to the other committee, I think is part of the charge of that other committee is very largely going to be education. Because we have to really, help people understand what that means and what it.
For everyone that
And-
you lay off,
It-
you've got to cover the unemployment.
Yeah, I was gonna point that out. That was a eye-opener to me when I joined the committee, was that we pay the unemployment for the people that we lay off. So we're not, like, if someone makes, say, $75,000 and we lay them off, we're not saving $75,000 on the town budget. We're saving maybe
But you gotta lay somebody else off to
30,
cover that.
38 or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, so it's not,
Yeah, it's not good business.
but here we are.
But all the other circumstances, like the multiple chiefs, like that was all resolved in the last fiscal year, so that won't carry over.
I sure hope
Oh,
not.
yeah.
I'm wondering.
If you heard something, no.
Just put your calculators away.
She says to the current chief.
Yes, that,
You're up.
but yeah, I mean it. It's like, there's just, everything happened at once. We're going through a reaccreditation, and our accreditation sergeant was working 3 to 11. So the step we took for that, because we had to get accredited, he was a patrol sergeant on 3 to 11, and he was working overtime to get us over the accreditation hump. Our reassessment to regain accreditation will be in October. So we brought him down into an administrative position, and that saved us $18,000 in overtime. Like, we are really looking at every possible way of saving a buck. We're very cognizant of the issues. We go frequently to the senior center to have coffee, and, we know how thin their fixed incomes are. Like, we truly try and think of everything. This was a very expensive year. I am hoping we are going to get way better at this going forward.
I wanted to point out, especially for the newer people, this is your first year.
Yes.
And you didn't come from being a chief previously.
Correct.
This is your first year here. So you're both, I think you've done a great job.
I appreciate it.
Stepping into that position, and the community engagement is great.
Thank you.
Posting and just different events and things that you're having.
We're two outsiders that very much love being a part of this community, and it's taken us in, and we appreciate that, and that doesn't change no matter what. We're here and we're invested.
It's appreciated.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of a testament to you and your leadership, because you were able to pull a couple officers who were looking to transfer, and you got them to stay and
Appreciate
continue to work overtime when they could have gone to another department and not had issues with vacation or overtime or having to do other things that they don't, schedule want to do. So I think that leadership shows.
Thank you.
So-
It's a huge team effort. Like, it's just a nice building to be in. People get along. They back each other, and I really appreciate what you said, but it's not just us. It's a collective.
I will say, and I think Barbara will back me up on this, that's really nice to hear, because for my time on the committee, that has not always been the case.
Very nice to hear, yeah.
Thank you.
Kumbaya.
I know, I feel like we should all put our hands in or something.
So,
And we still need to make a transfer of.
Yeah, we still need the money.
Yeah.
I know, even if we budget more, it's still money we have to come up with in the end, so.
yeah. Are there any other questions for the chief or the deputy? Gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
folks.
you.
Thank you
Let
very
you
much.
go
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
and actually enjoy the
Have a safe
rest of your
4th of
night.
July.
You as well.
You as well.
You as well. We will be around if you
Hopefully
need
you
anything.
guys have a very nice, quiet 4th.
I hope so.
Do you guys get the fireworks that you confiscated for me?
Yeah. We're gonna
Did you see
set them
that
off.
fireworks,
Factory
the
that
factory?
Blew up.
That's crazy.
Where was
I
that?
I did not.
Was it in California?
Northern California.
Northern California?
That was crazy.
I heard
Big
somebody,
fire.
overheard somebody at work today ranting about fireworks in New Hampshire and people blow off fingers.
Yeah, just a reminder, they are illegal.
They are.
They are illegal.
It is, it's almost time for our favorite game. Is it fireworks or gunshots?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought we already started playing.
I was playing last night.
I've been playing for weeks. I don't know about you
I was
guys.
gonna say, I definitely have played that game a few times already.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
All right,
folks.
thank
Thanks,
you.
y'all.
Thanks, gentlemen.
All right. Putting police aside, does anyone have anything else they want to discuss on the year-end transfer list?
I have a question, I think maybe for Andrew. Why is there just 2 different sections on the list?
So, item number 2 is for the Water Enterprise Fund, which is separate from the general fund.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And that transfer is for police details, so we're transferring from water expenses to water salary, so that's self-contained.
Okay.
And
I was
it's
just-
police details for work
For water,
on the
right,
water department
Water main breaks.
infrastructure. So
I was
if
just
it were
curious,
just,
like, why is this one thing
if it were just
separated?
random police details, we wouldn't be taking that out of the water.
Yeah.
department.
Right.
We would have to cover that somewhere else. But the water department
Please.
covers the police details for when they do work on the water. Pipes,
It's the whole
mains, et cetera. So,
Sorry, can we explain the remaining snow and ice deficit?
we can explain that and you don't have to apologize for asking.
Absolutely. So this year's snow and ice deficit was quite substantial, and we covered it partially at town meeting with some free cash. After that free cash infusion, there's $468K in remaining snow and ice deficit.
So we're allowed to deficit spend snow and ice?
It's the only budget that you can
The only
spend,
line,
that
yeah.
money that you don't have. It is the only budget you can do that in.
Because, I mean, some years it could be 300,000, some years it could be $1 million.
Because you can't predict the weather.
Right,
When you're
okay.
setting budgets back in December,
Yeah,
you know,
Right, yep.
right.
The Snowmageddon winter of, I think it was 2015, it was well into the millions.
So
something.
because of
I would
that,
imagine it must have been.
we budget very low. The number that we put on that line item is
150?
100K. I
hundred
believe it's just
even?
100K.
it's
We do have members of this committee who want it to be more.
$100,000. We budget it at $100,000. It is never $100,000. It'll never be $100,000. It won't be
Just-
$100,000.
So you're in the camp of wanted to be more?
I don't know that.
It will ne- You
global
can't fill,
warming.
how much does it cost to fill the salt shed?
I
More
don't
than
know.
a
More than
hundred.
More than
$100,000.
Okay.
$100,000. So just to buy your salt for
Technically, they're
the
carrying it
winter.
down, so
But, so
zero.
the problem is,
Well, the
if
new
you
salt shed will cost
increase
more.
that number, so say Scott and I
Agreed.
agree that it should be raised to $200,000.
So.
The following, you can never go back down to it, you can't go back down to
Yeah.
100,000.
And you can spend it if you don't have it, so why would you
Right, and you can use it in another budget, and then when you get your free cash and
Got it.
is
So the-
certified and all of that, you can, pay towards your snow budget there.
So the argument on one side is that we shouldn't raise it because we can always spend
Right.
over it and without being able to ever take it back down. If there were climate change or whatever that would take it back below that, and we had a year like that, we would have money left over, and that's not a place we would want to have money left over. The argument on the other side is, if we know for certain that it is going to be at a bare minimum X, we should at least budget X for that. so that we're more accurately going in and we have less to cover at the end
Later
of the
on.
year with
Like
free
right now.
cash or
Free cash.
transfers or whatever.
It's not that I'm opposed to it technically, it's just that we've
Depending
had
on-
extremely difficult years since I've been
And
here.
it is the only place that we
Scott.
have wiggle room when
Scott
we
was
have to start
hired.
cutting stuff. It's like, okay, well, there comes that off
Scott,
the
what
snow and
day, what
ice.
day did you start here in Abington?
Whatever day they closed the world for COVID.
Oh, and that's I think
Nice.
March 12th.
Yeah, it was right around
March 13th.
Okay.
March 13th, and I think I
I
started.
know because I
the
had
following week.
vacation that day.
My-
And I never went back to the office for months.
My school got canceled on March 12th. We were a little ahead of the school year.
Yeah. Were you at BU at the time?
No, that's my sister. I was
Oh,
at
that's right,
Bentley.
yeah. Yeah, because Bethany was my daughter was at BU, and she came home for spring break and didn't go
Never
back.
went back.
Like, she went back to online classes for the semester, and she didn't end up going back till September. So it was weird world at that point.
It's not really-
But that was when Scott started.
Oh, I was
so-
a federal contractor at FEMA,
Oh.
so I was having a
that
very
was-
Yes,
different
you were-
experience.
Quite
Earlier than
Yeah.
March 13th.
Yes.
so,
Yes.
Yeah.
But so that's just to say that the entire time Scott has been here, budgeting has been tight.
Okay.
So he has not had the opportunity to raise the amount that we're putting in the snow and ice removal.
The entire time that I have been here, budgeting has been tight.
I think it's always, and tax rate recap,
So what that means is that we don't have the money for it now, but when we start setting the budget, we can make it up with projected revenues. Let me explain. When we set the budget this year, let's see. We said that local receipts, so that's fees that the town collects, meals tax, motor vehicle excise tax, marijuana tax, all of that. We estimated that at 6.6 million. But based on this past current fiscal year's results, I think we're at, where's that? 7.3 million. So that extra money will eventually turn into free cash. What we're allowed to do is say, all right, rather than have that become free cash, we're just going to cover this deficit that we have. So it's spending free cash early, but it eliminates the deficit.
It's
And I
what we would
guess
pay
it
for this
makes
with
insurance,
anyone's.
not
At a
insurance,
town meeting,
interest
we would
that
use the
we
free
pay
cash to pay
on
for it
it.
anyhow.
makes sense.
Right, yeah.
So a little bit of savings there too, so.
Now, what happened, because we were talking about, I think, interest for your borrowing or something, did we say no to that? Or that was a thing,
I think we
Well,
determined it
we-
wasn't an option.
Yeah, we
Okay.
were originally going to use the stabilization fund to do this, but covering it, we're able to cover it on the recap if we do the transfer.
Okay.
Yep.
I remember there was like a long snow and ice conversation.
I think we had talked that we could stretch it out over X.
Okay, yeah.
We probably
Turned
could
out
stretch it out over 3 years,
Yeah.
but that wasn't the
Yeah.
case, which
Yeah.
is
That-
weird because the 2015 year, we
The
definitely
mega
stretched.
that's
We stretched over.
Oh,
3
yeah, it was like a
years.
special
That was a
thing.
one-time thing.
Yeah.
You
allowed
were
by the
allowed to
state.
do it then, you're not allowed to do it now.
I
Right.
didn't realize that.
We
they
had,
retracted
in
that.
2015, due to like
Because
excessive
going
amounts of
into that
snow,
winter, we
had
knew that you were allowed.
paid it back over the course,
It wasn't
so
like
such a big number, instead of paying it all back.
Pretty sure.
Payment
The
plan.
next year, we did like, all right, we'll pay this much back, we'll pay this much back, you know, for
Could
3
be wrong
years
on
we
that,
did
but that was.
Oh,
the-
wow.
I was
Can't do
much
that
earlier
anymore.
on the
Okay.
BU those
But
days.
yeah, I was in
It was a big
Duxbury,
deal.
and it was even worse.
Oh, everybody, it was terrible. That was,
Every other tree fell. It was awful.
Yeah, Floyd, I don't know if you heard that. In 2015, we had such a large deficit with the snow and ice, and instead of paying it back with the free cash all at once, we stretched it out over 3 years, free cash, but you can no longer do that, so, but that was something that we did at that time. And so that was discussion that was kind of tossed around recently, and that's when we were told, oh, you can't do that anymore.
Is there a reason for not being able to do it, or the state?
It was a one-off.
Yeah, that's the
It was
state
such an
law.
extraordinary year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That's the only reason they allowed it that year. Every city in town was facing $1 million plus, you know, that they.
It was the year, I think we'd get like a foot of snow, and then a couple
Remember
days later, we'd get
December.
2 feet of snow, and then we'd get.
it was
you
a
know,
The weekend after
Yeah.
weekend
Yeah.
of.
It was
Yeah.
at least
I think I
a foot,
saw
it was at
like
least
six
a
or
foot,
seven
6 feet of
snow.
snow. String
Yeah.
days.
Okay.
And where was FEMA then?
I'm pretty sure, what year was that?
2015.
I was not,
You weren't there
yeah, not there.
Yeah. Any,
Would there be any
Yeah.
benefit, sorry, this is kind of going back to the police question, because I know you said October. Would there be any benefit to having that number earlier? Because it seems like that's something they could forecast.
No, I think that's what we're trying to do is forecast it, but again, I mean, if we're, you know, you're looking at July, August, September, it's a quarter.
Yeah.
So that's why we're thinking that number coming out early October will give them at least one quarter, one full quarter. I still think it would be, I think it's probably gonna be fairly heavy, because I think after the second quarter, once we get into January, it should drop off. But even if it drops off, that kind of gives us a good idea. But I think that first quarter number, it just gives them enough time.
Okay.
But we are going to, you know, Andrew tracks it monthly anyway, so at the end of the month, we sort of get where everybody is. Matter of fact, you send it out to the finance committee too, right?
I can start including you. It's available on the town
It's on
website.
it's on the website, but basically where each department is tracking, you know, at that, you know, so the end of July is 1 month into the year, and if you're, you know, if you're 50% into your revenue number, then something's really wrong.
Yeah.
yeah.
So he's always done that, and that's kind of where we should have picked up on the police a
One,
little bit earlier.
one thing to caution is there are lines where we essentially pay the whole thing right at the start of the fiscal
Right,
year,
yeah.
like depending on what it is. So there are some.
That looks
where
like you're
would be
100% into your budget.
Oh,
you
yeah,
got
we're
nothing
how
left.
are we gonna
Yeah.
last
Yeah.
the entire year?
Yeah.
But it's because we pay the whole thing. Or we pay most of it in the first quarter or something like that, so.
Light insurance will pay all upfront, and we get a big discount.
Yeah,
Same thing with the pension. That's
Yeah.
due July 1st.
Yep.
And we get a discount.
yeah.
Whatever the number is, there's hard times ahead.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
for sure.
Other questions on the transfers? Abby, anything? Sarah? All right. So we went over the second one, the water to water.
Yes.
So we've gone over the whole list. So we need a motion
Motion to approve.
to approve the transfers. How do we want to say it? With,
When's our next meeting? First, wait a minute, excuse me. When is our next meeting?
so we don't have a next meeting scheduled.
And the selectmen are meeting
July 10th.
July 10th, which is next Monday.
It's a Thursday. They're specifically meeting to deal with
Just
this,
for
so
this.
they kind of, that's what it's gonna work. It's in the morning.
I don't like to vote things without a number, but it's July, and the odds of being able to get a quorum on July,
to be
what would that be,
difficult.
15?
That's the drop dead for you?
Yeah.
And that's your drop dead, so I'm against what I normally use as better judgment. I am gonna make a motion to approve the transfer. And, how do you want me to word that?
Please don't drop dead.
What?
I said, please don't drop
Oh, yeah.
Because the numbers may change.
Right. Something allowing the select board to adjust it if necessary.
So maybe something to the effect of motion to approve the transfers of $905,000 as detailed in item number 1 on the handout, and 5,000 in detailed in item number 2 on the handout, with the stipulation that additional transfers made by, approved by the select board,
May be necessary.
maybe, maybe not in excess of a certain amount of money will be
Yeah.
covered with approval.
You want to say 10% or?
10% like a lot, no?
Is it?
Like
Yeah.
90?
That's like
90,000.
90,000.
900 of, yeah.
What are,
5%?
what are we, like,
Because we have
Well,
another
like,
week, a full
what-
week of,
but what might, and you usually have a pretty good idea of what could
You know
potentially
it's
come in
coming.
that.
Would it only go up?
it could,
Yeah.
it could, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so
I don't think
if
it's anything
something,
huge.
if something comes in and it's within the line or within the budget, it's not something we have to worry about. It's really just if something comes in that takes a line that's not over budget, or that comes in and takes a line that's already over budget, further over budget.
Right.
Well,
So,
put it this way, in the circumstances behind all of this and what brought us to any one of these aren't going to change. So there's no further information that we're going to be able to give you except that in fact, maybe the overtime was $10,000 or $15,000 more than we expected. I think a typical, what's a typical week's salary at the police department?
It's a bill we have to pay.
Yeah.
Either
So
way.
And,
like bar,
yeah, or-
anything like out of the ordinary? Does that make sense?
so here's a question. Where, if we're taking a slightly more substantial, like we talked about 10%, if we had a 10%, like a $90,000 type
Where would we get it from?
number, where would that be coming from? Where do we have to potentially pull from to transfer?
Right. I'd have
something
to
like that?
scrape together other departments' turnbacks, basically. So,
That sounds like something we'd want to look at.
yeah,
Yeah.
I hear that.
So what then, maybe off of what you do know, what's a number that would not require scraping other departments' turnbacks?
Hold on, let me check.
The selectmen are absolutely not able to meet at all next, because they have to wait, they have to get through another week of,
For the selectmen,
waiting to see if-
they're satisfied meeting on the 10th. I think we'll have slightly updated numbers by the 10th. If you wanted to wait till the 14th to meet, that's a Monday, we could certainly provide a link and we get the quorum hybrid. It's one,
I mean,
yeah.
it's
one-
either
one
gonna be,
item.
there's been no changes, or here is what the
Right.
difference is.
Be a
And this is
quick-
why, it'd be pretty quick, so.
I mean, I'm around on the 14th if we want to have a
I
meeting.
am too.
I should be.
I
Yeah.
can.
And if there's no changes, we don't have to. It's up to you, you
Yeah.
know, or we meet anywhere, however you wanna do it.
Yeah, so why don't we approve what's in front of us and say that if there are changes, that we'll
Schedule a meeting.
schedule a meeting for the 14th and
Okay.
Yeah, that's
deal with changes.
Motion to approve the year-end transfers, the 25 year-end transfers, in the amount
905.
of $905,000.
For, as detailed.
As
on the-
detailed on the handout in number 1,
And then 5,000 in
and
number
an
two.
additional $500,000.
No.
Oh, sorry.
You're giving away all the
Not
money.
approving that. $5,000.
$5,000 in number 2 on the handout.
There is a motion, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second from Abby, motion from Barbara. Is there any further discussion on the year-end transfers? Without any, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
All those opposed, abstaining, it is unanimous. The motion has passed. All right, quickly running through standing business. My screensaver's turning on. Liaison reports. So for the newer members, each department within the town government is given a primary and a backup liaison on our committee. And those people will more frequently in budget season, but from time to time, reach out to the department heads, or if there's something financial going on, the department head will reach out to their liaison and talk with them about it. And we have a time each meeting where people can check in and let us know what's going on with their departments. So are there any liaison reports tonight? No liaison reports. Next up is correspondence, which I checked. The mailbox was empty.
Even though I moved it?
I was quite surprised. I walked in there and everything looked very different.
It's a legitimate mailbox.
Oh, it's a legitimate
I
mailbox.
thought it was like an email inbox this whole time.
Oh, it's I'll show you when we're done.
That's so funny.
There's a.
Since you're now the
it's more of a-
secretary,
it's more of a
and you will
mail
need to
slot.
collect the secretary usually collects the correspondence,
Yeah.
so
Oh.
you'll need to know where it is
I usually
anyways.
check it, but now I have these.
Look at that, now you're,
Is there also an email inbox?
There, I can get emails. There's a section on the website, the town website, where people can email the finance committee.
Is it one of those thrill share ones? Does it go direct to you? Or?
It goes direct to me.
Good.
So,
We can switch it if you like.
no, it's fine. Those I can deal with. It happens very infrequently. Sometimes it's people interested in joining the committee. Sometimes it's people chiming in on something that we discussed in the previous meeting. Doesn't happen all that often.
No.
I think if I've gotten double-digit emails over the entire time I've been on the committee, that would be a surprise to me. So.
Usually Maya saying that I paid the bill.
And then reviewing minutes. We do have 4 different sets of meeting minutes to go through.
any of those that we can do in blocks, is everyone here that was there?
So, if Chris isn't here, do we
Yeah,
have
so I was
quorum?
gonna say, we only have 4 people that can vote on minutes, right?
Oh, and Greg.
And I don't know if we had. So the voting on minutes is weird, and
I believe you can actually vote on minutes
I was
without.
gonna say, I think we can vote on the minutes without a quorum. Of
Yes,
the-
because
of
there's
the
not-
people that were there.
Of
the-
It's
yeah.
just that the people that were not at the meeting can't vote.
Right.
So the first set of meeting minutes was the meeting minutes for February 5th, 2025. Myself, Sarah, Abby, and Barbara were all there at that meeting, so anyone could make a motion.
Wait a minute, and the February 12th?
Uh,
Were we all there?
February,
Sarah?
I was gonna go one by one.
I was trying to do the minute in
You want to do a big
You
block?
wanna
I
do
was
a
trying to
one
motion in
vote?
a,
So I was not there on the 12th, so I cannot vote on the 12th.
motion to approve the meeting minutes of February 5th, 2025.
I'll second you.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the February 5th meeting minutes? Without any, all those in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstaining?
Motion
They
to
are
approve the
approved.
meeting minutes of February 12th, 2025.
I'll second you.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Without any, all those in favor of approving the February 12th meeting minutes?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Aye.
Motion to approve the
February
meeting minutes of
26th.
February 26th, 2025.
So for February 26th, sorry, hang on a second.
Abby was here,
We
I was here,
had,
and you were here.
Yep, Sarah was not here for that one.
I'll second you.
So motion from Barbara, second from Abby. All those, is there any discussion? Without any, all those in favor of approving the minutes from February 26th?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining?
All right, the March one, we were all there.
March,
Motion to approve the March 12th, 2025 meeting minutes.
I'll second.
motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Without any, all those in favor of approving the March 12th meeting minutes?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining?
Abstain.
The minutes are approved. Thank you all. And that brings us to discussion of our next meeting, which we have already discussed, will be Monday night, July 14th, Bastille Day.
You want to still do the 7 PM?
I think we should still do 7 PM here
And we'll
here in the
plan
Cotter
here
Room
and
if it's
Zoom.
available, and have it available on Zoom.
I may need to be Zoom. I
Yep.
typically
Should-
work on Monday, but. that
Should
can
be
change.
fine. It should be very quick if we do have to meet.
Yeah, I can. do that.
Andrew will let us know if we have to meet.
Hopefully not.
Yeah. One of the things to note, which I think I've already mentioned to both new members, you'll definitely get emails from me when we have a meeting coming up. I'll email the agenda. An important note, because we are covered by open meeting law in the state of Massachusetts, do not reply all to a email with any discussion on an item. You can say, I'll be there and things like that.
You can reply all and say, I'll
Those
be
are-
there.
Those are okay, but if discussion from about a topic comes up, do not reply all to that. That is considered a violation of open meeting law. So, something we've figured out in the last several years, so it's important to tell new people so that we stay above board with that. And that takes us to the end of our agenda.
And then how soon do you need names for your committee?
Actually, as soon if you folks want to vote on it, you can do it tonight, or you can put it on the agenda for the next meeting.
I think let's put that on the agenda for the next meeting to give a couple people that aren't here a chance to at least
Yeah, and, you know, while
decide whether they're gonna throw their name in there.
And again, while the committee will be made up that way, they will be open meetings. We're going to ask ACAM to televise them or record them and play them back. And so they'll be also open for participation for anybody who's not on the committee who wants to come and talk or put their 2 cents in or whatever. But my hope was not to make more work for everybody. It's, again, at least whoever is on that can also report back to this committee.
Okay, with that, are there any other topics or motions that people would like to make?
Motion to adjourn?
I'll second.
Motion to adjourn and a second. Any discussion? Without any, all those in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, abstaining, we are adjourned. Thank you all very much.